So, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Arvid and I am one of the founders of Spendency. Today we have invited our friends at Market Dojo to come and present their solutions in general and eSourcing in particular. And the reason why we have asked them to come here and show their solutions to you is that we have actually, it started about 5 years ago when I was the head of a consulting organization, and we were set out to do some e-sourcing and e-auctions ourselves. And we were looking for a tool that we found that was really user-friendly, yet very capable of doing what we needed to do. And then we got in contact with Market Dojo and quite quickly realized that a lot of the operating ethos that we have in Spendency and in eFso was very similar with how they did things at Market Dojo. They had an extreme focus on making things easy for the user, simple for the user, yet having very capable tools. And they worked with a great level of transparency. So I think we're unique in that way that we, both Spendency and Market Dojo, are among the very few players in the business that actually have the price list on their websites. So therefore, we thought we'd be interested to have Market Dojo come here and show you guys some of their excellent solution, and also help you realize what it takes to become successful, especially with e-sourcing then. And with us today, we've got Nick. Nick is one of the founders of Market Dojo, and I'm just going to hand over to you and let you take it from here, Nick.
Fantastic. Many thanks, Arvid. And yeah, thank you all for attending today. And it's a delight to be here and have the chance to speak with you. I will show a few slides to begin with. I'll bring that up in a second. And then we'll run into an actual demo of the software so we can sort of put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. But a quick intro to me. So yeah, thank you, Arvid, for doing so. I'm a co-founder of Market Dojo, procurement person by background. I worked at a procurement consulting firm for about 5 years, did a lot of managed tenders, managed auctions, supply chain risk, supplier negotiations, all that kind of fun stuff before setting up Market Dojo with some colleagues in around 2010. Let me just bring up my screen. With any luck, you guys can all now see that. And so what we're going to cover today is, why do so many organizations fail to get proper value from their eSourcing tools? And I'm going to answer that through a series of myths that exist about eSourcing and some of the things we've seen along our way. So in terms of today's agenda, as I say, quick intro of Market Dojo. I won't go into too much detail. Then we'll cover the myths that lead on to, why certain organizations aren't fulfilling their eSourcing capabilities. Then I'll do a demo, put it into actual practice, and I'll actually show you guys from what you can do. I'll go from a brand new user who's discovered Market Dojo on Google, decides to look at our website, to sign up, and to go through from there. So basically, everything I'm going to do today, you guys can all do yourselves whenever you want. And we'll also look to ring fence about 10 minutes for Q&A, but please do ask questions as we go through. You can use the chat box on the side of the GoToWebinar console there to just pose any questions, and we'll be delighted to take those as we go through. Perfect. So why does Market Dojo exist? Well, in our experience, there are still many companies out there that use email, spreadsheets, or even just legacy software like an ERP tool, or some of the sourcing software companies that established themselves in the mid-2000s or even earlier. And these kind of tools, emails and old tools, information is kind of all over the place. The tools are quite cumbersome and they're expensive. They're not exactly built for the modern user. The team collaboration is pretty poor, and ultimately it leads to worse results. And so this was our observation around the world. And so we just thought, come on, there's got to be a better way for procurement teams to manage their risk, manage the information on suppliers, and to deliver real value back to their organization. So that's why we set the company up in 2010. Now, Market Dojo, we often get associated with eAuctions or eSourcing. And absolutely, that's our sort of subject matter expertise. However, we do see a general trend in the market today of bigger businesses, the likes of Imperial Brands and Agreco and others that we work with, who are connecting best of breed applications together to form their end-to-end procurement suite. That whole mentality of, oh, I need to go to one solution provider to give me everything is sort of being broken down a bit now. And that's largely because some of these best of breed tools that exist, they're just extremely capable. They're very quick to use, they're very affordable. So it just makes complete sense to use them for their specialty and connect them with others to give you the suite. And that's what we do, so spend analysis with the guys at Spendency, fantastic solution, love the tool. That feeds into a pipeline management, sort of pipeline opportunity tool called Category Dojo that helps procurement teams understand the opportunities in their spend by answering different questions like, when did you last negotiate this? What approach did you take? How many suppliers did you engage? What have the cost drivers done since your last negotiation? These kind of questions, just to give you a quantifiable savings opportunity, a time scale, and a relative complexity of your initiative, so you can plan your year a bit better and know a bit more robustly as to what you might get in terms of value and savings. But then that feeds into a pipeline management tool. So we have partners with the likes of Provalido for doing pipeline management. And then that feeds into eSourcing, which we'll cover today. We also do supplier onboarding and contract management, and then again the Provalido for the savings tracking to capture all the good work that you're doing. And then that can feed into things like Power BI and other BI tools, or back into Spendency, so you've got all of your information in one place. And then we also have partnerships with the likes of Vruzy and Esker and Complete and others within the purchase to pay space to build out that true end-to-end procurement suite. So what's different about us? In a few sentences, we offer a pay-as-you-go tool, so you can use our solution at one RFP at a time if you want to. We also do new updates to the platform every couple of weeks, so we're very sort of quick and agile about how we do things. We've got lots of expertise, myself, my procurement background, and my other colleagues have procurement background as well at the likes of Rolls-Royce and PwC. So we like to think that we know what we're talking about and can kind of come up with good solutions for our clients. We put our pricing on the website, just as Arvid said at the beginning, that's something we have in common here. So you can see how much our tools cost just from the website. You can get going in minutes, and I'll show you that today. We'll actually go through setting up a new user and jumping into the tool. And we very much like to focus on support. So we don't just leave you guys to it. We have live chat in the application where our average response time is about 9 seconds. So you're not left waiting for long if you have questions. And some pretty cool things out there, like we were shortlisted for the World Procurement Technology Award in 2020. We have some brilliant ratings by Gartner and Capterra, including the top 20 procurement tools in 2020, and Spend Matters One to Watch and a few other accolades, which is always very nice. So some of the clients we work with, big and small, we have a real spread of clients. Some as small as just a few million in revenue. And others, like you can see here, some of the bigger names that we may well have heard of. But bottom line is we work with all kind of companies, whether it's direct spend, indirect spend, large, small, single user, 200 plus users. It doesn't really matter. It's all there to be used. And that is about it from Market Dojo. I will get into some of the myths of eSourcing so we can get a feel for where some of the mistakes or issues come up with eSourcing that we've seen. So I've got 5. And number 1 is, I need to roll out an eSourcing tool to the entire company and commit to 3-year contract with a provider, otherwise known as, oh, it's just too expensive. It's not for me. I don't have that kind of commitment. Well, that's not the case anymore. That certainly used to be in the mid 2000s, or late 90s even, that was the case. But today, no, you can pick up a tool, use it as and when you want to, self-sign up. It's very straightforward, and you can just pay for what you consume. I've backed up a few of my myths with some lovely dilberts here. So yeah, that certainly sort of spells out sometimes how it can feel within an enterprise. But that's the bottom line. You don't need to commit long term. You don't even need to commit beyond a single project if you don't want to. And so, that myth, really, you can, with many platforms today, certainly ourselves, you can try before you buy, and I'll show you that later, to just start with one RFP at a time. And it costs £500 in our case to do that, so it's pretty low risk. You can create that success and showcase to the business, hey guys, look, I've given this a go. This is what I've generated. It worked really well. I've shortened down my procurement cycle. I've guaranteed myself additional savings, and it draws in the organization. They see that success, and you can then feed real data, real insight into your business case if you then want to go forward with a bit more of a bigger rollout. So you can put your action into practice rather than just discuss theory on your business case. So that's an important point. The other thing, we've actually seen non-procurement people do this, guys in marketing or IT who have come to us saying, hey, Market Dojo, I'm about to run this RFP for my department. Procurement team are telling me that we don't have any tools or anything to use. So that seems nuts to me. That there's got to be a better way of doing it than just emailing out some, Microsoft Word document. And I've found your platform online. Can I use this? So in actual fact, we don't even just work with procurement. We work with other departments who believe there is a better way to run tenders as well. Number two is, oh yeah, we need a solution that can handle everything, the simple tenders, the most complex, 10,000 line item, transformational bid, multi-currency, multi-Incoterm type scenario as well. We want all of that in one solution, please. And again, I mean, the Dilbert is absolutely spot on here, that sort of design by committee of going around the organization and saying, hey, what kind of features do you want to see in an eSourcing tool? You end up with this enormous beast that is just no good for anyone. It makes the simple tenders incredibly complicated with lots of buttons to click. It makes the complex tenders even more complex. You need a huge training manual to understand how to do the different scenarios that we're talking about. And the end result is, in all honesty, that majority of those features never get used. They just sit there as shelfware. Maybe one person in the business knew how to use it once, but they left, they've gone to another company now, and you're left behind with this thing that no one really knows what to do with. And so, what we would suggest is, look, if you actually want your eSourcing tools to get used by the company and hence drive benefit, then just keep them simple, at least to begin with. And then over time, you might want to build in your complexity. As your maturity develops, as your experience develops, as the demands in the organization develop. So that's definitely something we would recommend. Next up, number 3. eSourcing. It's great. I like eSourcing. I believe in it. Yeah, I can see some benefits, but you know what? It's just not right for me, or it's not right for my company. It's not how we do things. It's not right for the industry, or even not right for my category. It's fine if you're doing office supplies and IT, but no. I'm looking after complex electronic components or fabricated parts or complex services. That shouldn't be the case. We do a lot of collaboration at the moment with Jacob Gorm Larsen, who is the director of digital procurement at Maersk, and the author of this book, A Practical Guide to eAuctions for Procurement. We're actually offering his book free for any new client that signs up, because it's a fantastic book. And he ran an award-winning eSourcing team at Maersk. There's a lot of great lessons to be learned. And one of the key ones in the book, he references a CPO at a retailer that he knows who said, look, if you've got suppliers that are invoicing you for goods or services, you most certainly can e-source it. And maybe that's a bit too far for some, but definitely we would say, look, if you've got a competitive market and it's a commercially attractive contract that you're handling, you can definitely take it out to market through an eSourcing tool. There's really nothing stopping you. By way of example, I personally used Market Dojo to run an eSourcing event for my house extension. So talking about using the tool for your own personal use. So I was looking, for a new loft where I'm in it today, and a new kitchen, and I went out to about 96 builders around my home city and invited them to tender online in Market Dojo, where I shared the scope of works and the cost breakdown sheet that I wanted to fill out. And I had a whole load of online questionnaires or questions, just asking, are they tax registered? What other kind of projects have they done in my neighborhood? That kind of thing. And I had 26 responses online. And these are guys that, in some cases, they had to borrow their son's laptop in order to gain access. They were responding on their phone through the tender process. So you can, if I can do it for my own house, then I'm sure you guys can do it at work. And it's an interesting thing that eSourcing, like in procurement, when a new person starts in procurement, they don't sort of expect to be given tools. Take an analogy. If someone's new to finance, they join the finance team of their company. From day one, they're saying, right, which accounting platform are we using? Is it Sage? Is it QuickBooks? Is it SAP? What are we using? Or if a salesperson joins a sales team, day one, it's like, okay, what CRM are we using? Is it Salesforce? Is it Zoho? What are we using to track all of our opportunities? But it's so strange that in procurement, someone joins, and often it's like, right, what tools are we using? Excel and Microsoft. Oh, and SharePoint. Right, okay, interesting. Why aren't we sort of expecting to be given tools when we start in our job? It's a strange parallel. Number 4 is my suppliers won't engage with this process, or / suppliers don't like it. There's a few things to say about this. I mean, on the one hand, okay, suppliers may be saying they don't like it because actually they know it's quite an effective way for them to be competitively negotiated. So, from that point of view, you'd want to do that. You should be finding the market price for each of the goods and services you're tendering. You shouldn't be taking it from a supplier that actually you'd be okay with them overcharging you compared to the market. But the other thing on this, and we have a little look at our data here. After every single eSourcing event in Market Dojo, we send out a survey. It's a really short survey, one question. It says, how would you rate the experience between 0 and 10? 10 being brilliant, 0 being hated it, won't do this again. And what we then do is turn that into a net promoter score. So this goes to buyers and suppliers. We call them host or participant. And any survey score that's between 0 and 6, we give it a score of -1. And for any survey rating that's 9 or 10 out of 10, we give it a score of +1. And then what we do is you just add all these together, all these minuses and pluses, and times it by 100 to give a score. And this is exactly what it is. It's totally unmanipulated. This is absolute raw data. It's automated. We don't touch it. And you can see that, okay, clearly hosts are getting higher feedback from this. They're saving a lot of money, so why wouldn't they? And by the way, the net promoter scores are a standard thing in across many industries. A score of 70 or higher is absolute world class, because you can see the weighting there. It's only a 9 or a 10 that gives a +1, whereas 0 to 6 gives a -1. So there's a bigger range for the minuses. But you can see in the orange there, participant, still overall really highly positive about the experience, which is great. That's what we want to see. Why is that? Well, eSourcing can make the process quicker for suppliers. It can make it more efficient for them. It makes it easier for them to do business. They get invited to more opportunities. Because when as a procurement person, when you're running a sourcing event via email, you tend to think, well, I'm only really going to go to 3 or 4 of my known suppliers because I don't have the time or anything else to deal with lots of new suppliers who want to ask lots of questions, and that's just a mess in my inbox of trying to manage this process. So I'll just go to the 3 or 4 that I know. Whereas when you do eSourcing, you can cast the net wider. You can go out to 20, 30. I think the most we've ever had in one event is 600 or 650, which is a lot. I don't necessarily recommend that for everybody, but you can certainly see that you can go to more suppliers because the information all comes into one place, and it just makes that whole process easier. And so from a supplier point of view, they get invited to more opportunities, and they get that extra transparency through the process that they don't necessarily get via an email-based approach. So that's what the survey says, and sometimes you can't argue with the data. And then number 5, is that other myth that we use email or spreadsheets or PDF or whatever it might be. It's fine. It doesn't cost us anything. That's just what we use. But that's not true. Using email and spreadsheets, it does cost the organization. It's a hidden cost, an opportunity cost. And there's a few things on that. I mean, the first thing is that by doing eSourcing events, generally speaking, you get higher savings. In Market Dojo, we see the average is 16% across all of our eSourcing events. And partly that's the reason I just said that you can go out to more suppliers. So clearly, if you get more suppliers, you get more bids, you get more competition, you should get better rates, or better value, I should say. But equally, you can also, you give suppliers that enhanced perception of you as a department. If as a supplier, and speaking as a supplier here, speaking as Market Dojo, the supplier, when we get a client who comes to us with an email saying, hey, Market Dojo, we're looking for an eSourcing tool, can you just tell us how much it costs and fill out the spreadsheet? It kind of tells us this isn't a very mature function. They may not be going to many providers because they can't afford to with that kind of manual process. So we don't necessarily have to be as razor sharp as we otherwise would. Whereas if someone runs the whole process through an eSourcing tool, immediately the perception changes, and it's like, oh, this is a company that knows what they're doing. They've invested in tools. They must be mature. They're probably going out to quite a few other providers in the marketplace. We need to focus here. We need to do our very best to win this. And so that means more competition as well. So there's a few things there. Brilliant. I think that's pretty much it. Enough talking from me. I think we're more or less on track with time. So let's just jump in and show the software. And again, guys, please do ask questions as we go through. Very, very happy to see them. In fact, I think there might be one there. Let me just exit this. So let me just see if there's a question there. No, we're all good at the minute. Perfect. So what I will cover, I mean, this is the Market Dojo website. And I will basically run through this and just show you how to sign up. And we're going to do a worked example together of an eSourcing event. The thing, as I say, about Market Dojo, you've got all of our different products here. You can delve into any of these individual products. This is just our website. You just go to Google, put Market Dojo in, and you'll find this. You can kind of see what the tool does, who we work with, that kind of thing. But equally the pricing. So there's a few different currencies there, but you get a feel for what it costs. And if you think, hey, yeah, this could kind of work, I'm interested in this, you can sign up for free, which we'll do now. So the first thing you need to do is just put in an email address. So I'll just do this one at my.new.org. So I'll just put in that email. And then it's just going to ask me a couple of other questions. So I want to host an event. My name is Nick Drew, my number is, whatever it might be, my company. I just want to run an eAuction, let's say, and then, here I am based in the United Kingdom, and give myself a password. So there we go, I've just signed up. And what it's going to do is going to send an email to me just to check that we've got the right email address, because that's useful for later. And I will just hop across into my email inbox just to see if that's arrived yet. So it will come through shortly. There we go. So there's Market Dojo. Please activate your account. And there's a nice link there. So I'll just confirm that. And so now what it'll do is just log me in, which it's done. And I'm in. I've got a little welcome here. I can also do a few other things. I can, have a little look at the products. So, navigate to where I want to go. Maybe I want to learn about an eSourcing tool, and it says, okay, well, if you want to play around with eSourcing, what kind of questions what would you like to do? And you can kind of talk through, do you want to see an online auction or not? Maybe not. Do you want to get some quotes or ask suppliers some questions? And so you can see it starts guiding you down the right process to use, whether it's an RFI, an RFQ, or an eAuction, and so on. I'm going to jump out of this, but basically what it does, it guides you through all the way to creating your own sourcing event, which can be very handy. You don't need to make any changes at this stage. You can just jump straight in and start building a sourcing event if you want to. For some of our bigger clients, what they might start doing is taking ownership of the tool a little bit. Maybe they'll play around with the branding to some extent. So you can sort of say, oh, you know what, our corporate colors are, a bit of blue or light green here, whatever it might be, and you can sort of customize it, make it look a bit more like your own solution, put in your own domain, that kind of thing. Equally, you could go to permissions here and you can add in some colleagues and sort of say, what permissions you want your colleagues to have, whether they want to see your events, edit your events, set up different teams around the globe, that kind of thing. And later on, you can also build your own sourcing event templates, so whether it's questionnaire templates, bid templates, even whole sourcing event templates, you can sort of just take ownership of the whole thing a bit more. But one thing that is very cool, you can go to the sandpit, where we'll just jump into today. And the sandpit is like a replica of the real software, except in here you can play around as much as you like. There's never any cost. You don't need a license. I mean, you can see I haven't given myself a license here. And you can just mess around doing your own sourcing events to your heart's content. You could play around with an auction. You could play around with an RFP, anything you want. And what's really handy is you can change who you're looking at the software as. A buyer, a host, as we call it, someone in procurement, hosting tenders, or one of 3 different suppliers. And so we'll do this in a second. We'll just toggle in between the different perspectives. Pardon me, you can hear any rain. It's absolutely hammering down outside now. Welcome to Britain. Yeah, apologies if you can hear that in the background. What we'll do, we'll create a draft event. And so you can set one up from scratch, a new event, or you can use a template. And again, I'm a brand new user. You guys just saw me self-sign up there, just like you can do. Within the tool immediately, we have a whole load of templates that people can use if you want to get a feel for how to do a packaging tender or road freight tender, that kind of thing. So I'll use this example, simple lot one here. It's quite popular. But you can also clone events. So if you've done a sourcing event in 6 months ago in here, you can just copy it and redo that and put it out to suppliers. So I'll just click new event. So I'll use this one. And so that's just going to load up our template here, and it will pop in a few bits of detail that we can then edit. So you can see here it's given a name, so example, simple lot template. I could change that to whatever I wanted to, my first RFP, whatever you kind of want to call this stuff. You could say, actually, what, I want to do this in SEK. You could have multi-currency if you wanted, so you can have suppliers bid in different currencies if you wanted them to do that. You can put in like an event brief, a sort of covering letter of the process. You can say, yeah, we'll have a questionnaire, and this one's preloaded. It's an example questionnaire, but I could call it whatever I want. Due diligence, acceptance to terms, RFI, anything really. I can give myself a little deadline. I'll come back to that in a bit. You can say whether you want the questionnaire to be a pre-qualifying questionnaire. In other words, suppliers have to get through this process before they're allowed to continue with the rest of the tender. So as a sort of gateway kind of process. So things like an NDA, accepting your terms of service, code of conduct, any of those mandatory questions that are really important that would basically prevent you from doing business with a supplier, you could load those in. And you can see you can also do scoring as well. So if you want to do the whole sort of balanced scorecard type approach to your RFPs, then you very much can do. You could also have another questionnaire. So you can build your process up sequentially if you want. You could either do it up front, or you could run the first questionnaire, edit the event, add in another one, run that process for a couple of weeks, edit the event, add in another one. So you can just sort of build it up as you go. And then we'll have an RFQ, which I'll come back to all this later. So that's just kind of our high-level settings. Then we might add any documentation into this tender. So, some drawings, code of conduct, NDA, just any sort of documentation you wish to share with your suppliers. And you can see we've got a huge amount of space. In actual fact, we can increase that very easily for clients, for those that are doing very complicated specifications. And then we'll have our questionnaire. In this case, you can see it's just called example questionnaire, but as I say, could call it whatever you like. And it's got the one question in there: do you agree to the NDA? But I can add in more questions very easily, and I can do it via Excel upload if I wanted to. So question 2 could be, where are you based? What facilities do you offer? You know how it works. And you can do it dynamic questions, so certain questions will reveal only when certain earlier questions are answered in a certain way. And you can also have lots of different question types, multiple choice, upload a document, fill out a table, so you can sort of, fill out financial performance over the years, all that kind of thing. So lots of good capability there. I'll just delete that question though. Then we can have our RFQ, which is what I've decided to do here. In this particular case, this template we loaded, there was, laptops and mice, but you can have lots of items here. You can also do this format here is what we call a simple lot. It's just if I just click edit here, it's just a name, a quantity, and a unit of measure. So pretty basic. But if you want to, you can do what we call an advanced lot, where you have a series of items all sort of in a bundle, and you can have multiple columns going across the page of, say, specification, order quantity, delivery address, and you can even have multiple price components. So you can say, packaging cost, delivery cost, raw material cost, tooling charge, whatever you want, and then a sort of formula at the end where you can say, right, the total cost is going to be A plus B plus C plus D, and that's going to be my total. Like you would in Excel, basically, except in this way you don't need Excel. You can do it all in the tool. It's easy for suppliers to fill out, and it does all the analytics inside the tool as well to make life very straightforward for you. So that's the advanced lot if you did that. We'll stick with this one for now, just to keep life easy. And then the last step is inviting our bidders. So there's a few ways of doing this. The most basic is you just need an email address. So you just type away and that's it. If you've got 600 emails, copy and paste, put them in there, or maybe upload from a spreadsheet. Easy enough. I'm in the sandpit, so I'm limited to these sandpit suppliers. So let me just invite these 3. And as I say, guys, like, you can all do this yourself. I've not done anything special. This is all an example that you guys can do right now. So there you go, I've added them in. This is still in draft, so it's not gone out to anyone yet. But as soon as I hit this button, invite participants and finish, which I shall do now, it'll package all that up and go out and invite those suppliers to take part in this tender. And don't worry, we can make edits. You can see the edit button in the bottom right corner. So if you do need to change deadlines or tweak something or add in a new question, you can do that as we go through. Again, much easier than email, where you need to recall an email or send out a new version of something, and it all becomes a bit messy. So what we can do in the sandpit that's very cool, we can just flip to being a participant. And so now we're going to look at the software from the supplier point of view, as one of those 3 suppliers that we invited. And so let's have a little look here. We've got my first RFP that is sitting in my event invitations as a supplier. So they can click on that. There's one step we've skipped here, which is the act of the supplier receiving an email in their inbox and clicking on that link. So we've skipped that step out, but just picture an email in the inbox of the supplier with a link to take part in this. And in fact, this kind of detail is included in that email. The brief that you wrote, the contact details, and so on and so on. But the idea is they go, yeah, I'd like to take part in this one. That sounds like something I can do. So they see the overview, and again, all those kind of settings and rules you set up. They see the example questionnaire. So big red cross because I've not done it yet. Some might have a little look. Are you blah 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 NDA? And it's guiding me to the documents tab. I could have put an actual web link to that document here so that they can just click on it directly. But there we go. So they said yes. It's kind of prompted me to submit because I've done all the questions. Great, questionnaire submitted. Next step, doing the quotation. So there's those 2 items that we're bidding for. So I might come in at, say, 1,000 SEK. In this case, we actually had a qualification price, which is it's like a maximum bid you're willing to accept from the suppliers. You don't have to have one, but it helps to sort of compress suppliers into an acceptable range. You know, so for example, if you've got a very fixed budget, you could put your budget in as your top cost. So they'll have another go, and maybe we'll come in at 750. This is probably a very cheap laptop. I just realized we've obviously converted from pounds to SEK here. And let's put in that. So again, it's prompting the supplier, hey, you've done everything you need to at this stage. Do you want to submit? Which they've done. The supplier can also, you know, ask questions and do that kind of thing. So, you know, little messages here. You know, I have a question, very straightforward. And that just goes privately back to the person running this. And there's the documents tab. You know, I skipped it out, but you know, there's that NDA. I can download it and I can share documents here and that kind of thing. I'll flip across to number 2, just to do this process once more, just so we've got a sort of comparison going on in here. But you guys saw the process. You know, the supplier gets an email, they click on it, takes them here, where they can accept the invitation if they want to take part. They can then fill out the questionnaire. Clearly, this is a very basic example, but you could literally have hundreds of questions here and have it all broken down into different sections, different scores, if you so wish. And then we have our RFQ itself. So, you know, we'll put in our pricing. This time we'll go maybe a little bit cheaper. And there we are, all done. So very straightforward. So let's bounce back to being our host. So, you know, me running this process, sitting in procurement. I'll just flip across to the overview. So first thing I have is just a reminder as to what I've set up here. And whilst I'm here, I'm just going to put in a deadline for my questionnaire, because at the moment it's just a permanently open-ended deadline. So probably bad practice there, but let me just say we'll end this whole tender in 2 minutes time. So I'll just save that in there. And that is done. It'll just prompt me to tell my suppliers in case they need to know, but I'll ignore that. Then we have our suppliers, our participants participating in this tender. You can see I've got 3 in the list that I invited. However, one of them has not yet accepted the invitation, so I may wish to give them a chase or send a message or whatever it might be. And I can see the other 2 have completed the questionnaire. And of course, as you'd expect, you know, all the full audit trail as to what happened and when it happened and all that kind of thing. And I can see that they've placed their initial bids as well, which is great. I can also sort of drill down into a supplier point of view and sort of see who are they, when did they last do things, how did they answer this questionnaire, how did they answer the bids, and so on, all from this sort of one page. Or I can go to the questionnaire tab itself and see all my answers side by side. So here we are, number 1, number 2. As I say, if you had 600, that's wonderful. You have 600 columns. You can compare them all. And if you wanted to, you could export it all out into Excel to do things there. Maybe some suppliers you'd think, you know what, you're just not good enough for us. So you might decline their answers and sort of, you know, have that audit trail of them not being so good. But otherwise, in this case, it's pretty straightforward. And then we have the RFQ itself, where we can see, you know, what bids were received, by whom, what value they are, and so on. So you can see all of that summary here. And actually, as I was just talking, the deadline passed. So our sort of tender here is finished, at which point we've got a few options that you can choose. You can either add another round in. So you could say, right, everybody, I'll give you another day to requote. I'm going to share your feedback from this round. So when the supplier next logs in, they'll see, I'm in 2nd place. I don't want to be there. I want to be winning this thing. So I'm going to improve my offer. And you can sort of, you know, extend, you know, do a multi-round quote, basically. So that's one approach you could take. Or, and I'll show you this in a second, we can do an auction. So we'll do that. But I just want to see we've got our message here. So you know, you see your message board. You can mark it as read, send a reply, do whatever you want to. So maybe I'll send a reply saying, we are going to do an auction, and I can say send that to everybody. Nice and easy. So you can see there's a lot of versatility here. If you don't want to do auctions, that's great. You can do a multi-round RFQ, or you could just do the best and final like we've done right now. But since we're here and we've got a bit of extra time on the clock, let's just do an auction. So we'll tick, do you want to have an online auction? Yes. And we'll say, let's start this in about 30 seconds time, if we can. I'll come back to these kind of settings. We can change them live during the auction itself. So let's just make that available. And again, it's prompting me to tell my suppliers. And you can see all it's done really very simply is it's added on an auction tab. So it's all contained into one place, which is very, very handy. One thing to note just on this particular process, when you take an RFQ to auction, we don't carry the bids across just because we didn't tell suppliers we were going to auction it. So they have the opportunity to sort of restart where they want to. If you chose an auction up front, then they actually have an ability to put in their initial offers, and then those do get carried through. But in this case, they just quickly put in their new offers, and whatever it might have been, something like that, I think. And then if I went to number 2, so they may come in at, let's say, 760 initially. And that pops them into second. Not great. I want to be in first, so maybe I'll come in at 745. And happy days, we're in first. And then, for this one, they might also come in at 15, which in our case at the moment, the rules we've got puts them into second place. So I'll have another go. And now they're in first. And so if I bounce back to the other supplier, clearly they're in second for each of these things, they can just counter. So it's very, very straightforward. Granted, this is a rather simple example, but equally you can do some pretty complicated things. Even with multi-currencies, even different Incoterms if you really want. But the beauty is that it's still pretty simple and straightforward for suppliers. And then let's bounce back to our host, the person running this process. And you get to see a nice sort of live update of everything that's happening, who's placed a bid, when they placed a bid, that kind of thing. You can see a nice sort of summary of the position. So, we're already up to 27% savings, which is wonderful. But I can expand this so I can see the different suppliers, side by side and what they're offering us. I can even see who's active at the moment and how many bids they've placed on any given lot. And I can also see a nice graph of what's happening. So whether each supplier opened up their bidding to where they are now, and seeing a sort of horse race, as they call it. So I can sort of turn some of these things off and zoom in and have a closer look. So there you go. That's that happening. I mentioned the settings. I mean, like what you can do during the auction live, if you wish to, you can extend the clock. Put in another 10 minutes if one of the suppliers has said, "Oh, I'm stuck in traffic. Can you extend?" You can change the extension period. So if you get bids coming in the last couple of minutes, you can tell it to extend rather than just stop. And you can change the minimum and maximum bid change during the auction as well. So if I change that to 15, for example, I don't even need to pause it. It just takes effect real time, pushes it out to everybody, and on we go. And then other things we can do, we've got a pause button here. So a bit of a safety net if there is something going slightly wrong. And most critically, you can see we've got lots of help here. So we've got to contact us. So you can actually contact Market Dojo live through the web chat. That goes to a real human being. That's not a robot. That's a human being answering that. If you remember from the slides, average response time of about 9 seconds. And you can say whatever you need to say. If you've got a question, you've got a query, something's not going quite right, then that we are very, very happy to jump in and help. So that's what you got there. But equally, you've got lots of videos and things like that, which our clients often use. They paste a link to a video to their suppliers. Very, very few, if any, of our clients ever do supplier training sessions. Instead, you can just copy one of the videos and say, there you go. If you want to learn how to use it, there you go. But as you can see for yourselves, it's hopefully pretty straightforward how to use the software anyway. Perfect. I will just end this auction. Not that there's much more I need to show you at the moment. We're just coming up to our Q&A time. But the last thing you can do is you might download everything into Excel and do your own reports. We do have analytics options in the tool as well, or you might do your awards. So you can sort of nominate which suppliers you wish to award which piece of business and so on. But otherwise, that's your end-to-end process done. And as I say, you might only use Market Dojo for one project ever, but if you ever came back 6 months later, a year later, your login will still work. This will still be here waiting for you if you want it to be, and you can just carry on. Just use this as and when you want to. So I think that's pretty much everything I was going to show. I don't suppose there's any questions that we've had out there at all.
Well, this is Niels from Spendency. I have a question. If you said your tool is working perfectly well for any categories, and I know they are, but what would you recommend me to start with if I feel I want to try out the system and do my very first e-auction?
That's a good question. I mean, we have seen a few. Sometimes people say, well, let's start with the low risk, commoditized stuff first. Your office supplies, your IT equipment, things that people won't mind too much if things get delayed or anything else like that, which is fine. That we see those categories the whole time. But equally, it generally could be anything. You don't have to start off doing an auction. You could just start off doing an RFP. And so often the first RFP that gets put in a tool or in Market Dojo is the very next RFP they're working on. It's as simple as that. So it's just, right, what's coming up in your pipeline? Okay, we've got an RFP on mobile telephone services across the globe. Brilliant, let's use that one. We've seen 10 of them last month. So let's help you build it out and let's get started. So there you go, could literally be anything, whatever's next.
Great. Okay, so another question that we got here, which languages are present in the system?
So we have quite a few. If I jump out the sandpit, it brings up the list, because quite honestly, top of my head, I don't even know. There's a lot of them. So English, German, Spanish, French, Italian, Romanian, Netherlands, Norwegian, Polish, Swedish. I'm starting to run out now as to what exactly all these others mean. But yeah, Korean, simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Arabic, Vietnamese, Turkish, Thai. There's quite a lot in there, ultimately. So yeah, if clients need more languages, generally speaking, it's about a 2 to 4 week process, depending on who's going to supply the translated content, and it's something we're sort of happy to collaborate with clients to deliver.
Great. If we move forward to advanced quotation analysis, is that available?
Yes, I didn't show it much today, just I didn't want to sort of jump in the deep end, but very much so. What you can do in the tool is the advanced lots that I mentioned, where you can have multiple price components all in one sort of line item, like you would in Excel. You can have lots of different line items going down the page, and you can build your own formula. So that could be different scenarios that you want to play with. Give me the cost with this extra add-on, or give me the cost without that add-on. Give me the cost with tooling amortized over 3 years. You can build up these kind of formula. And then in the tool itself, I haven't got it turned on, but you can turn on an analytics tab where it pulls all this data through, and you can do your own sort of pivot tables in the tool, turn different columns on and off, rearrange the sort of the layout of the columns and the data to really sort of drill into it. Or if you're more comfortable with Excel, you just download it all into Excel. So you have all your data, correct in one place, and you can do your sort of advanced analytics there. It's up to people's choice. Sometimes we don't want to invest in reinventing Excel. It's a great tool sometimes, but as long as we can make it easy to get the data together and get it structured and consistent, that's where the tool comes in primarily.
Great. Another question. 16% you mentioned there in the beginning, you see savings. What do you see, what is your experience from taking it the next round, the 2 years after? What happened then?
So initially 16%, and then you redo the tender. That's a great question. It reminds me, we have a client that loves doing freight tenders, and they've done the same tender about 4 times in a row every couple of years. And what continues to surprise me is that they continue to drive savings out of it. You know, it's always one of those magical things in procurement that every year we're given a 3% or 5% cost down. And often it's the same categories that go into it. And it's like, well, hold on, how can we keep getting 5% cost out of the same category year after year after year? Surely we should be spending 0 on this now. But ultimately, there's always scope creep, there's price creep. You know, in the case of the freight, new lanes get added during the course of the year that haven't been competitively tendered. At that point, it was just, you know, hurry up and try and find a vendor who can do this. And so, you know, even when you redo these projects, you know, 2 or 3 years later, there is often a significant saving to be had still. Plus you get new suppliers, you get cost drivers that change. Obviously, if cost drivers have gone against you, then, you know, good luck, you're not going to get that savings result. But if the cost of oil or something else has come down a little bit since you negotiated it 2 years ago, then you've got that margin to play with as well. So in all honesty, I don't have a figure. We haven't done that analysis of what figure it is, but it can still be a good result nonetheless.
Great. We have more questions. The bids, are they legally binding?
Yes, we say in our terms of service it is. Clients can also go a step further, and, you know, within the questionnaire that I showed you, where we had that simple question of, do you agree to our NDA? You can also have a question in there quite clearly stating, you know, do you confirm that your bids placed in this tool are legally binding for a period of 90 days or 120 days or whatever, so that you've got that opt-in as well, that double confirmation from suppliers that they understand and acknowledge and agree to that exact statement, along with any other, you know, statements that you wish for them to apply to. So we're covered on our terms, but equally our clients can come up with their own terms as part of the tender.
Great. We have different kinds of questions about integrations. Can you mention something about those?
Yes, so integrations, and that's a really good one. So we, being a modern tool, have a lot of open APIs. We make it very easy for people to see what we can do and how to get data in and out of Market Dojo. One example is we integrate with ourselves. we have a tool called Quick Quotes that is just like a 1-page form for building up an RFQ. It actually uses our API to our eSourcing tool, but it's a whole separate front end. We also do single sign-on using things like Okta, Microsoft Azure, Google. We're just doing SAML too. We've got integrations with some other procurement tools out there. So yeah, there's lots we can do. We can even have companies create sourcing events from a third-party tool. And where we'd love to get to is having eSourcing events being able to be created from email. That's the dream. So that you could just write an email to yourself, or, you know, to the sourcing tool with a few bits of detail in it and send it to the sourcing tool, and that will build you a sourcing event. That's where we want to get to.
Okay, you started with setting a target price when you started the bidding, the auction. What happens if the supplier thinks, well, that's too low, I want to go above it?
So the target price, for one, it doesn't have to be done. So you can, if you want, just leave it empty, and then any bid is accepted by the system. So that's absolutely fine. You can do that. Secondly, if you have got it too low, you've put one in and it is too low, and the suppliers have said, look, sorry, we just can't match this, you can tweak it if you want. You can increase it if you wish. So it's not universally used. It's just if you feel you've got a truly commoditized product, or you have a very, very fixed budget, and it's, you know that if anybody is above this, I just cannot get this signed off, then that's where it may come in.
Okay. Do your current customers, have they told you anything about that this tool have changed their internal processes when using it a year or two?
So yes. So I mean, like, one of our clients, it was quite interesting, is Logitech, you know, the IT company, and they began by just using the tool ad hoc, you know, one RFP at a time. Because again, it was where someone in the category team, category manager, just thought, hey, you know what, there's got to be a better way of running tenders than email. So she looked out on the web, found us, and started using it. You know, £500, put it on the credit card, off we go. Her boss didn't even need to get involved. It was like, yep, fine, whatever. Just if you think it's going to help, then you go for it. And she ran that RFP, and it worked really well. And then she thought, well, I've got another one coming up. And this is on, I think, like marketing services. So quite a sort of challenging one to get your head around sometimes. And she ran another one, £500 again. And at that point, the boss said, hey, actually, I'm really impressed with those results you're getting. What are you actually doing? And got interested in the tool. And at that point decided, okay, this is good now. I will invest properly in this, and put in, I think they bought 6 licenses, you know, paid up front, to just properly change their process and say, right, guys, you know, our category manager here has been using this tool and doing really well. I want the rest of you now to follow this process, because this is quite clearly the future. This is the way to go. So, you know, a sort of gradual change, and then suddenly like that period of enlightenment of going, yes, this is now really working. We should all do this.
Okay, great. We have one question here. How about public customers? Do you have them, and how do they work with the tool then concerning the legislations?
Yes, we do work with a number of public sector organisations. I mean, it's a bit of a funny topic in Britain at the minute, you know, with Brexit, and you know, are we meant to follow European rules? Are we not? The public sector in the UK is actually changing the procurement rules for the first time in ages. But we work with various councils and universities, charities as well, who follow public sector rules. What I would say is we don't have all of the regulations built in. You know, you can see our tool is pretty agile and flexible. So if you are doing things like standstill periods and remedies directives and things like that, then you kind of manage that alongside the tool. But you can certainly just use the tool to gather all the information in a transparent and auditable way. So we certainly tick all the boxes, from being fair to suppliers, you know, giving them universal access to the information, you know, equality, all that kind of thing. But we certainly do work with public sector as well.
Great. I think we're almost out of questions. If no one have another one, we have like 1 minute or 2 left. But then let me just add one. If concerning this public sector, and also if I want to try out the system, can I run one single eAuction and pay for that, or just a couple and oversee the price for doing so?
You most certainly can. Yep. I mean, you saw that self-serve, create your account there, and then if you decided, hey, that practice event I've just done in the sandpit, I would like to do that one for real with real suppliers, just give us a call. I mean, you can even pay for it by credit card in the tool itself if you want to, and you can publish it live to real suppliers and move ahead. But you know, with any use of our tool, you get our team and our account manager and our support down in that help box, so you're not alone, and don't ever feel like you would be. So yeah, definitely, we'd love to hear from you.
Great, excellent. So I think this is like end of time then. So you will publish this on your web page, send the link to all the participants.
That's right. Yep, it'll be with us probably in the next couple of days.
Perfect. Okay, then thank you all. Thank you everyone for participating today.
Fantastic. Yeah, many thanks all. Really appreciate it.